clerk will read the order of the day.
Debate on petition number 12, praying for the immediate action to protect companion animals.
I call the member for Goyder.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I move that petition number 12 be noted. Those who know me know how much I love dogs, including my own, Sunny and Thunder. Like so many here in this chamber today, I know the joy and unconditional love pets bring to our lives. Today I rise not only with my own voice, but with the voice of Evie, her bark, and the 2,096 people who have signed this petition as of this morning. I speak on behalf of Dean and Anitra Jackson, Evie's loving family, and I acknowledge Dean's presence in the gallery today, and I believe Anitra is watching the live stream. When I first met Dean and Anitra to hear about their dog Evie, I expected heartwarming stories of companionship. Instead, I, like many Territorians, was deeply moved by the heartbreak they endured. Our first official meeting back in November last year was both emotional and informative. Although Dean and Anitra had beautiful memories, stories and keepsakes of their Cocker Spaniel Evie, a series of horrific events led to their loss of Evie and the shocking discovery of the lack of regulation around animal boarding facilities in the Northern Territory. For those that do not know Evie's story, I will try to do her memory justice and share it with you. Evie was dropped off with her best mate, Waffy, to a boarding facility so they could be looked after while Dean and Anitra travelled interstate to attend a funeral. This was the Jacksons' first time using a pet boarding facility, and having met the business owners previously and reassured by the promise of comfort, air conditioning and personal care, they trustingly placed their beloved family members in the hand of the facility. 3 days later, when the Jacksons were on a plane home, on their way back from the funeral, they received a call to advise them that Evie had broken a bone, but that she was at the vet and everything was under control. They were understandably upset by this news and concerned with the minimal information provided. They contacted the vet clinic and were unexpectedly told that Evie was in a critical condition, unresponsive with major blood loss and wounds indicating that she had been mauled. Evie's family has been through an ordeal I wouldn't wish on any pet owner. Stuck in an airport with a long plane ride ahead, filled with worried about the welfare of their family member. Sadly, despite the efforts of the veterinary team, Evie passed away that evening. Worse, all these months later, the Jacksons have been unable to get clarity on what actually happened to Evie to cause her fatal injuries. When this petition was tabled on the 22nd of May 25, it had 1,495 signatures. Today, that number has grown to nearly 2,100, representing Territorians, Australians and animal lovers from across the world. Each signature is someone who has heard Evie's bark and is calling for change and for better protection for our pets. Mr Deputy Speaker, Evie's story has captured the hearts of Territorians and animal lovers across the nation. Through Evie's bark, Dean and Anitra have turned their unimaginable grief into action, shining a light on the need for higher standards of care in pet boarding facilities. Our government has listened to their actions, activism and courage, and we are committed to ensuring that pets entrusted to boarding facilities are protected, cared for and treated with the dignity they deserve. Our government is determined to deliver a framework that ensures Territorians can have confidence in the care their pets receive when they cannot be by their side. The Minister for Ag and Fisheries is already progressing reforms to strengthen animal welfare laws, which he will introduce later this week, including amendments to the Animal Protection Act, the Animal Protection Regulations and the Criminal Code Act. Not to take the Minister's good news away from him, but these changes will introduce a code of practice for boarding kennels, boost compliance powers and deliver stronger safeguards for animals across the Northern Territory. Without the strong advocacy from Dean and Anitra, it is unlikely that this code of practice would have been picked up as it was included in their submissions. These reforms that are being progressed will strengthen oversight, introduce enforceable standards for pet boarding facilities and ensure that the safety and welfare of animals are front and centre. Because we understand, as everyone in this chamber does, the deep connection Territorians have with their pets. They're not just animals, they're family members, they're companions and they're loyal friends. Evie's life was cut far too soon and her story is now driving real change. Once again, I'd like to acknowledge that Dean and Anitra have shown extraordinary courage in turning their grief into action so that others will not face the same heartbreak. So to everyone who signed this petition, to those who have also lost beloved pets, and to Dean, Anitra and Waffy, I say this: Evie didn't have a voice that could speak in this chamber, but today we hear her bark, loud and clear, not as a cry of pain, but as a call for compassion, accountability and change. Don't stop barking, Evie. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Goyder. Deputy Chief Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise today to make my contribution in relation to this matter, and I also thank the member for Goyder for bringing this petition back to our attention. The member for Goyder is particularly passionate about protecting the wildlife and the animals and ensuring that they are properly cared for, and this is evident last year when he adopted a greyhound. I also like to acknowledge Dean Jackson from Evie's Bark, who's in the chamber here today, and I understand Anita is watching this by video stream. Madam Speaker, when I first became the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries with the responsibility for animal welfare, one of my first meetings was with Anita and Dean Jackson from Evie's Bark. I heard the story of how their beautiful dog Evie tragically lost her life in the Northern Territory boarding facility. I've seen how much Evie's pain and death has caused and continues to cause them. We have been government for nearly 12 months, and we've been working hard to ensure that we'll do everything we can to ensure such tragedies are not repeated. Members here would know we have been considering a range of measures to strengthen the Animal Protection Act and have been consulting extensively with our key stakeholders, Territorian, animal organisations, about how we can improve safety and protection for all our animals. A number of issues have been raised with myself and my team, including the lack of regulation in boarding kennels, the powers of authorised officers, and how we can make the penalties tougher for those who mistreat or are cruel to animals. Again, members would know that over a 4-month period we had a Have Your Say campaign was taken in 2024, which received a total of 229 submissions. Overwhelmingly, there was significant support for change that would both simplify and strengthen penalties, which are currently under development and will be dealt with later this week. Madam Speaker, Mr Deputy Speaker, all animals in the Northern Territory are entitled to a standard level of care for their welfare, health and safety. If you're in charge of an animal, whether it be a wild, farm or a family, you must make sure they have the right food and water and living conditions, get proper treatment if they are sick or injured, are allowed to exercise and are handled appropriately, will not be harmed by confinement or restraint, are worked, ridden or used in ways that are appropriate, and are not used in organised animal fights, or they are not abandoned. Members of the public are encouraged to contact Animal Welfare Branch to report suspected cases of animal cruelty or neglect. We all have a duty of care to protect our companion animals as well as our livestock, including chickens, horses, goats and cattle. My department works hard to educate Territorians on how to properly care for animals. We have a dedicated team of animal welfare officers who respond to calls from the public and are responsible for investigating, educating and, if necessary, prosecuting those who mistreat animals. We have an Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, 8 dedicated members with significant vegetarian experience, animal rescue, rehabilitation and stock management. They provide me important advice on animal welfare issues within the Northern Territory. We're also working very closely with my colleagues, the Minister for Local Government, Steve Edgington, to ensure our local councils are providing animal management through their jurisdiction. This includes removing strays from public areas, responding to animal attacks and dealing with animal noise complaints. Madam Speaker, this petition, brought bravely by Evie's Bark, was really highlighted the work that needs to be done to protect our animals, our pets and our livestock. I know many people in this chamber have pets and livestock, and this really brought to light the lack of care that available at those boarding facilities. And our legislation this week is going to make sure that there is a standard of care for all these animals, as I spoke about earlier. We will not shy away from our responsibilities, and my department will work hard to make sure any gaps are addressed and any practical solutions can continue to occur as we move forward. Through the work done, we need to ensure that we strike a balance between providing modern, efficient and flexible animal welfare compliance enforcement with outcomes with available resourcing while meeting community expectations to strengthen animal protection laws and, of course, protect animals. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Next, member for Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, I rise today in support of this petition, which is incredibly close to the hearts of many Territorians, close to mine as well. For anyone who spends time with me, including on my social media, you'll have met my dog Billy, who's my great companion and listens to me patiently as I talk about what's happening, often reflecting on what's happening here in this chamber. She listens to me when no one else will, so I'm very grateful for that. And I can't even imagine how I would feel if anything happened to her, especially if I had left her in the care of people who were meant to be looking after her. And I'm also very lucky to have met Dean and Anitra, and our sons, Zeph and Dylan, have had some wonderful adventures together. The member for Goyder told us the story of Evie, a beautiful dog who was killed in March this year while staying at a pet boarding facility. She was mauled to death and her story is devastating, and we also know that she's not the only one. All those animals who've been lost or hurt, they were all loved and they all should still be here. And we know from this petition that right now in the Northern Territory, commercial pet boarding facilities and pet sitters, including those booked through popular apps like Mad Paws or Paw Shake, are not covered under the Animal Welfare Act, which means they're unregulated with no licences, no inspections, no oversight, and no clear way for families to seek justice and information when something goes terribly wrong. The law that this petition calls for, Evie's Bark, is practical, compassionate, and I won't go through the details of what it said, we've already heard that here today, but they're smart, common sense reforms, and it was great to hear from both the member for Goyder and the Deputy Chief Minister that the government has a commitment to addressing this issue. We know these laws already exist in other places, and it's time the Northern Territory caught up. So just very briefly, to those who fought so hard to make this visible, to those like you, Dean and Anitra, who've experienced such an unnecessary and great loss, thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you also to all the other people who've supported this petition. And we can see that what you've done has already and will make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Next speaker, Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I too rise this evening to support this petition, and I'd like to thank the member for Goyder for bringing this important petition to the government's attention, and thank, of course, the Deputy Chief Minister for providing the response on behalf of our government. I think there's no question that Territorians absolutely love their animals, and whether it's their pet dog or their cat, they might have a bird. If you're a rural member, like many of my colleagues are, you often extend that love to horses and goats and all sorts of other wonderful animals that are part of your family, and of course livestock as well. And of course, when you have a pet, you do everything you can to keep them safe. They are absolutely a part of your family. In this country, we have extremely high rates of pet ownership, particularly when you compare it to the rest of the world. According to the RSPCA, there were almost 29 million pets in Australia, which is amazing. 69% of all Australian households have a dog that they love, and 48% and cats at 33%. In a survey that was done in 2017 by Animal Medicines Australia, it showed that the Northern Territory actually had the highest rate of pet ownership in the country, with 82% of Territory households owning a pet. And I think those figures are extremely high, but certainly unsurprising. When it comes down to it, we need to be supporting our beloved pets because they're part of people's families. And just like our dog Milo, who's a family member for us, you know, Evie was a very big and important part of Anitra and Dean's life, of course, and I acknowledge that Dean is in the gallery with us today. And so that's why this petition has been so important, and people have already talked about the courage that it takes to use a tragedy to be a force of good. And, you know, that is no small task. You are dealing with your own grief. Every time you talk about the issue, you are having to relive that trauma and the horror of it all. But the power has been so profound and important, and it's resulted in legislative change, which we'll hear more from the Minister about this week in Parliament, which is fantastic. It's a great outcome, not just for Dean and Anitra and, of course, for Evie's legacy, but for pet owners and people who have pets, to make sure that going forward there are the right regulatory processes in place to protect them. And what this really has exposed is that, you know, there are sections that are unregulated that need to be regulated. People have an expectation that they are, and that is a fair expectation, and we have met that expectation by delivering for Territorians. And so while we received about 250 submissions on our Animal Protection Act consultation that we did, we are very proud to be delivering this reform for all Territorians. Thank you.
Member for Wanguri.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of Evie Sparks' petition brought to this chamber by the member for Goyder on the 22nd of May 2025, which is a petition from 1,495 petitioners praying for immediate action to protect companion animals. This petition requested that the Legislative Assembly take immediate action to protect companion animals through the implementation of Evie Spark, and the reforms are crucial to preventing further tragedies, provide peace of mind to pet guardians, and uphold the values of care and respect that our community holds for its animals. Madam Speaker, Evie was a cherished pet and was entrusted to a pet boarding facility in a rural area near Darwin. Days later, they learned she had sustained critical injuries and subsequently died as a result of the tragedy made possible by the absence of licensing, oversight and legal protections in the anti-pet care sector. Madam Speaker, pets like Evie are family to their owners, and I know many of my constituents and Territorians on a day-to-day basis need to use pet minding facilities when they need to be away from their homes, and yet in the NT, the absence of oversight means now laws currently ensures their safety, accountability and care guarantees. I know I have 3 pets myself, Charlie, Cody and Captain, and we have just inherited 4 chooks, so they're very much part of our family as well. Madam Speaker, the petition has grown now to over 2,000 e-signatures, and although the new signatures added have not been tabled, it shows just how sensitive and well supported this matter is to the community. Madam Speaker, the importance of protecting companion pets is important as they provide emotional, physical support and may reduce stress, anxiety and depression. They provide emotional companionship, they provide support during trauma and recovery, they provide physical health benefits and may lower blood pressure and heart rate, and they encourage physical activity. Madam Speaker, companion animals can improve social developmental benefits by enhancing social connection. They can improve a child's development. They support for neurodiverse individuals by providing structure, calm and sensory regulation for individuals with autism, ADHD and PTSD. Madam Speaker, there are benefits for older Australians and combat loneliness, and they provide therapeutic service roles providing emotional support as trained services and therapy animals. Madam Speaker, I support this petition that protects vulnerable pets, support responsible guardians and hold providers accountable, and thank Dean and Anita and the member for Goyder for bringing this petition to the House.
Are there any more speakers? Member for Arafura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on behalf of the opposition to acknowledge the petition calling for urgent regulation of the animal boarding industry in the Northern Territory. Let me begin by recognising the tireless advocacy of Anitra and Dean Jackson, who launched this petition in memory of their beloved dog Evie. The heartbreak of losing Evie, a trusted companion while in care of a pet boarding facility, is something no pet guardian should ever have to endure. The tragedy of Evie's death and others like Marco, Badger and Bella have struck a chord with Territorians. That's clear from the more than 1,400 people at the time, and now it's growing, the petition, who have signed the petition, calling for reform to ensure their pets, members of their families are kept safe when entrusted to others. Right now in the Northern Territory, there is no licensing, no code of conduct, and no regulatory framework governing pet boarding facilities or commercial pet sitting services. The sector operates without standards, oversight, or accountability, and that is simply unacceptable. The opposition supports the principle at the heart of Evie's bark, that our law should reflect the reality that animals are sentient beings capable of joy and pain, loyalty and fear, and should be treated with care, dignity and protection. Territorians should have confidence that their pets will be cared for. That means proper standards, mandatory reporting of incidents, a code of practice backed by enforcement, and clear consequences for those who breach the community trust. Madam Speaker, this petition is not an attack on pet businesses. It is a call for responsibility. Many in the industry already do the right thing, but it is not good enough to rely on goodwill when the consequences of failures are so devastating. The government now has a clear mandate to act. The opposition urges the Minister for Animal Welfare to take this petition seriously, consult with the industry and animal welfare groups, and bring forward reforms that reflect the values of the community that cares deeply about its companion animals. We thank the petitioners for their advocacy. We stand with you for calling for change. Thank you.
That concludes debate on that petition. The question is the petition be noted. Those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Leader of Government.